Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of Master Chess Theater. In this episode, we will be examining a recent masterpiece against the Queen's Indian defense by 17-year-old and now International Master-elect Josiah Stearman, played in the Charlotte Fall Invitational on October the 2nd, 2020. Because of Josiah Stearman's professional approach against FIDE master Richard Francisco's Queen's Indian defense, I have titled this game as the Q.I.D Pro Game. But before we examine the Q.I.D Pro Game, let's learn a little about the players. As 2020 comes to a close, Josiah is now an International Master-elect, which means he has now completed all of the FIDE requirements for the IM title. A Northern California native, over the years, I grew accustomed to seeing Josiah winning first place at Cal Chess State Championship events. In 2012, I organized a small benefit tournament to help raise funds for sending Josiah and another talented youngster to Slovenia for the FIDE World Youth Chess Championships. It was at that tournament that I had the pleasure of meeting the Stearman family and saw firsthand how supportive they were for Josiah's chess. With so much talent and strong family support, it was no surprise when Josiah Stearman was named an All-American designee by the United States Chess Federation. Currently at just 17 years old, Josiah is not just an IM Elect, but also a student at the University of California at Berkeley, majoring in applied mathematics. FIDE master Richard Francisco was born in 1984 and grew up in Athens, Georgia, where he learned chess at the age of 10 in an after-school chess club. An avid student of the game, Richard Francisco has read through over 200 chess books, and many of those several times. All that study certainly has paid off, as Richard Francisco plays for the Atlantic Kings Pro Chess Team and earned the FIDE Master title shortly after graduating from college. Now that we have learned more about the players, it is time to enjoy the Q.I.D Pro Game. One d4. Josiah opens with a center pawn. One knight f6. Richard Francisco responds with an Indian defense in which black tries to influence the center through the use of his pieces rather than by occupying it directly with pawns. 2c4. 2e6. 3 knight f3. 3b6. And with this move, black has finally revealed his intentions by choosing the Queen's Indian defense. 4g3. Josiah chooses the fianchetto system. 4 bishop a6. It may look strange for black to post his bishop on a6 rather than in the house on b7, but in fact, this is the well-known and often played Nimzowitsch variation. White can defend the c4 pawn in many ways, such as knight d2, queen a4, or queen b3, queen c2, but all these moves diminish white's support of d4, and thus black can plan on playing pawn to c5 to challenge white's d-pawn. So Josiah plays 5b3. Which is the most popular choice for supporting c4. 5 bishop to b4 check. The drawback of white's choice is that black usually plays bishop b4 check, which takes advantage of the weakened dark squares on white's queen side. 6 bishop d2. Josiah's move is once again the most popular choice because it deals with the check while immediately challenging black's dark bishop. 6 bishop e7. It is worth noting that 6 bishop d2 check is okay as well, and can be followed by queen takes d2, castle, bishop g2, d5, castle, c6, knight e5, knight f d7, knight d3, dx c4, 12 knight b4, queen c8, which resulted in a draw in Anatoly Karpov versus Predrag Nikolic from the 28th FIDE Chess Olympiad in 1988. But back to our main game, where Richard Francisco has just played 6 bishop e7, to which Josiah Stearman responds with 7 bishop g2. This traditional fianchettoed position is especially dangerous given black's exaggerated fianchetto. 7 c6. So Richard Francisco plugs the diagonal and is now once again prepared to play d5. 8 bishop c3. An important move to clear the way for the knight on b1 to develop to d2. 8 d5. As expected, black plays d5. Now white has two very reasonable choices with knight e5 and knight b to d2. 9, knight b to d2. Josiah chooses the knight b d2 path. Had he played knight e5, play would have continued with something like 9, knight e5, knight f to d7, 10, knight takes d7, knight takes d7, knight d2, castle, castle, rook c8, 13 e4, dx e4, knight takes e4, b5. And white went on to win after 35 moves in Vladimir Kramnik versus Levon Aronian from the 2007 FIDE World Championship Tournament. But back to our main game. Josiah chose 9, knight b to d2. And then Richard Francisco plays 9, knight b to d7. Black's knight on d7 will help support the thematic pawn break of c6 to c5. 10, castle. 2 of the 3 opening goals are completed for white. Again, the 3 opening goals are 1, maintaining a center pawn, 2, castling, and 3, unifying rooks. 10, rook to c8. Of course, rook c8 is to further prepare for the c6 to c5 pawn break. 11, rook e1. Josiah is signaling that if black dawdles too long preparing c5, that white intends to play e4. 11, castle. Black wisely gets castled. 12, bishop b2. The bishop steps out of the way, so the stage is set for the rook on a1 to make a grand entrance into the c-file. Additionally, should black's knight recapture on d5, now Josiah's bishop will not be threatened. 12, c5. And finally, we see the thematic c5 pawn break. 13, cx d5. On move 13, we have our first capture of the game. 13, knight takes d5. Black's knight captures en route to b4. Richard Francisco could have also played 13, ex d5, rook c1, rook e8, dx c5, bishop takes c5, in which his bishop coordination is nice, but at the expense of an isolated queen's pawn. Back to the actual game, following 13, knight takes d5, 14, a3. Josiah immediately stops the black knight's dreams of relocating to b4. 14, queen c7. After instigating the c5 break, black now forms a battery in that all-important file. 15, rook c1, to which Josiah immediately places his rook on c1 to stare down black's queen. 15, queen b8. Richard Francisco wisely steps his queen out of the line of fire. 16, e4. 5 moves after playing rook e1, Josiah pushes his pawn to e4 with a threat. 16, knight 5 to f6. 17, d5. Josiah Stearman, with the initiative in hand, advances his d-pawn into enemy territory. 17, ex d5. 18, ex d5. 18, rook f to e8, placing a rook in the now open e-file. An alternative plan to deal with the threat of rook takes e7 would be to play bishop d6, which also stops further d-pawn advances. For instance, 18, bishop d6, 19, knight c4, rook c to e8, queen c2, rook takes e1 check, rook takes e1, rook e8, 22, rook takes e8 check, knight takes e8. But Richard Francisco chose 18, rook f e8, 19, knight to e5, 19, queen c7. I understand Richard Francisco's desire to patch up all of his defenses, but I am not a fan of moving the queen back to c7. Instead, 19, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop d6, 21, bishop takes f6, rook takes e1 check, queen takes e1, gx f6, queen e4, bishop f8, queen g4 check, bishop g7, rook e1, rook e8. And white still has a nice advantage, but black might have better chances at a draw. But back to our main game. Richard Francisco has just played 19, queen c7, and Josiah responds with 20, knight c6. The d5 pawn makes a nice outpost for the knight to move to c6 on. 20, bishop d6. With Josiah Stearman in such a dominating position, it might have been advisable for Richard Francisco to move the bishop to f8 instead to try and make his king's defenses less penetrable. For instance, Richard Francisco could have played 20, bishop f8, knight e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, queen d6, queen c2, knight f6. But even this can be compromised by white with 24, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, 25, bishop takes h7 check, king h8, and 26, bishop e4. So back to our main game. Richard Francisco just played 20, bishop d6, 21, knight e4. Now Josiah is threatening f6 twice with potential of forcing black to play a gx f6, exposing his king. 21, knight takes e4. But capturing the knight just brings white's light bishop into the attack. 22, bishop takes e4. Now white's bishops have a coordinated attack on black's king, while white's knight is in the 6th rank. In addition, one of Josiah's rooks is in an open file, and the other is in the same file as his opponent's queen. But most pressing for black is that Josiah's queen is eyeing h5. 22, g6. Richard Francisco takes queen h5 off of the table. 23, queen d2. So Josiah Stearman lines his queen up to move to h6 instead. 23, bishop f8. And black stops queen h6. 24, queen c3. So Josiah threatens queen to h8, mate. 24, f6. Stops the mate and is the best move for Richard Francisco, but also further weakens black's king safety. 25, bishop g2. Josiah Stearman realizes that the bishop did its job forcing black to create weaknesses, and now should step back to allow white's heavy hitters a chance to attack black's position down the e-file. 25, bishop b5. Francisco made his choice. Some possible alternatives were 25, queen d6, followed by knight takes a7, and rook a8, and knight c6, bishop e2, bishop h3, queen takes d5, 29, bishop g2, queen f7, with a winning edge for white. Alternatively, perhaps my choice for black would have been 25, knight e5. Knight takes e5, rook takes e5, bishop h3, rook c e8, rook takes e5, fx e5, 29, bishop to e6 check, rook takes e6, dx e6, bishop c8, b4, bishop takes e6, 32, bx c5, bishop takes c5. But this also favors white strongly. So back to our feature game. Francisco has just played 25, bishop b5. And Josiah responds with 26, a4. 26, rook takes e1, check. Some alternatives here are 26, bishop takes c6, dx c6, knight e5, f4, knight f7, queen takes f6, queen d6, rook c to d1, rook takes e1, rook takes e1, queen takes f6, bishop takes f6, c4. It's worth giving up a pawn to get the bishop into the game. Bx c4, bishop c5 check, king h1, king f8, and white has a winning endgame. Another possibility is 26, bishop a6, bishop h3, h5, rook c to d1, king h7, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, queen takes f6, bishop g7, queen takes g7 check, queen takes g7, 32, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, 34, d6, bishop b7, 35, d7, and black is left with an impossible choice. So back to our main game. Francisco has just played 26, rook takes e1 check. 27, queen takes e1. After all, Josiah's queen can make better use of the e-file than his rook. 27, bishop takes c6. 28, queen e6 check. The queen steps into enemy territory with a check. 28, king h8. 29, dx c6. 29, knight e5. 30, rook to d1. And now the rook takes the d-file. Material may be equal, but Josiah's pieces are so much better placed that this game is effectively over. 30, rook b8. 31, queen takes f6, check. Rook d7 would also win beautifully. For example, 31, rook d7, queen takes c6, queen takes c6, knight takes c6, bishop takes f6, check, bishop g7, bishop takes g7, check, king g8, and 35, bishop d5, check, mate. However, Josiah had another beautiful finish in mind. So back to our main game. After 31, queen takes f6 check. 31 black, bishop g7. 32, bishop takes e5, exclaim. Just beautiful. This game is an absolute masterpiece. 32, queen takes e5. Of course, after 32, bishop takes f6. 33, bishop takes f6 check, king g8. Rook d7, queen c8. Bishop d5 check, king f8. Bishop g7 check, king e8. And 37, bishop f7, checkmate. But Richard Francisco played 32, queen takes e5, to which Josiah responded with 33, rook d8 check, and black resigns. For after 33, queen e8, c7, bishop takes f6, rook takes b8, queen takes b8, cx b8, promoting to a queen with check, king g7, bishop d5, bishop e7, 38 g4. White can take a moment to seal the deal on black's king. 38 a6, queen e8, bishop f6, queen f7 check, king h6, queen takes f6, b5, f4, bx a4, and 43, queen f8, mate. Seems like a long and excruciating path to the same result for black. I hope you enjoyed watching this modern masterpiece by Josiah Stearman versus Richard Francisco, which I have titled The Quid Pro Game. If you like this episode of Master Chess Theater, please give it a like and subscribe to the Daily Chess Musings channel on YouTube. As always, there is a free quiz to check your understanding of this game available at dailychessmusings.com. Once again, I have been your host, Chris Torres, and this has been another exciting episode of Master Chess Theater. Have a great day.